Good afternoon and welcome to Law and Crime. I'm Angelica Spanos. Thanks so much for joining us today. Moore are found guilty on both accounts. That's kidnapping and conspiracy to kidnap. This is interesting because we know this was a retrial. His first trial ended in a hung jury. Latonia, reaction to this, were you surprised?
It's a little bit surprising if you think about the fact that there was no true physical evidence, but you had to remember what the prosecutor talked about in the beginning for opening statement. It's about circumstantial evidence and bringing those things together. And the fact that he had the last contact with her, these text messages were essential. And obviously the jury believed the same thing. And because they believed that, they were able to come with this verdict of guilty.
Right, absolutely. And Katie, what about you? Were you surprised based off what Latonia said? Did you have the same feeling?
Yeah, I did, because this is a perfect example of a very heavy circumstantial case that it was augmented by a lot of the cell phone data that we've been talking about. The location of all the individual players was key to putting them all together. You know, in my gut, I always think it should require just a little bit more to convict somebody of this, but at the end of the day, there was overwhelming circumstantial evidence.
Exactly, and we had pages of all those ping reports from all the cell phones here. So that, I guess, is what did it. After he was sent, after the verdict came out, the victim's sister spoke out in the sentencing for her victim impact statement. Let's listen to that. All right, so that was Heather Elvis's sister there. And these victim impact statements are always emotional. They always really impact everyone in the courtroom because they are most, frequently emotional, and we see a lot of sadness coming from families or relatives of victims here. Latonia, what do you think about this one? I mean, do you think this will affect the sentencing?
Well, you never know, but she makes a very good point. She talks about the fact that how this not only affected her family, but how he affected his own kids. And for people to understand out there who are listening in to us as we talk about this, a victim impact statement doesn't necessarily have to be read by the family member. It's up to them to decide if they have the courage to do so or not. They have that right, but a victim has the right to make it known what their thoughts are with regard to what's happened. It's their first time to be able to talk during that trial. The trial is gone and they've listened to everything. They've seen all this information come out about what's happened to their loved one, and they don't get a chance to speak. And this is the first opportunity they get to speak, and on some level speak with a voice that their loved one no longer has. So I thought it was powerful. Anytime you hear a victim family speak, especially about the loss, it is a very powerful thing. And it doesn't affect the jury verdict, but yes, it can affect the sentencing.
Absolutely. And in this case, we never found Heather Elvis's body. So for this family, this is their sense of closure.
Right, and that's probably one of the saddest things, especially with this case. Usually we're talking about a murder trial, and we're talking about the fact that, we found a body, you're getting some conclusion on some closure on some levels, because you're saying that this person has been found guilty of the actual death of the person. As we are aware, these charges, they were originally charged with regard to murder, but those charges were dismissed. A body was never found. So even though they're getting some closures that they're being held for the kidnapping or the disappearance, they still don't know what happened to their loved one. And you would hope at this opportunity, this would be the time where either one of them, Tammy or Moore, would say something at this point and say, what happened, but they are concerned about appeal purposes. So you're not going to have that happen.
Right, and let's move on because Moore actually speaks right before the sentencing was given. Let's listen to what he says. All right, so Moore is sentenced to 30 years on each account, but they will run concurrently or at the same time. And this is after he serves his 10 years for the obstruction of justice charge that he was already sentenced to in relation to Heather Elvis. So he got the max sentence here. Latonia, what do you think? Obviously, he got the max, but do you think that 30 years is enough?
Well, I mean, here's the reality. He was charged with and convicted of kidnapping, and that's one of the max that you can get, and that's what he got. Whether or not you think it is enough for what he's charged with, it is what's appropriate. But like what the judge said. The judge went through all of this, and he said he believes that you were part of this conspiracy. And even when you heard his own words, he said, "There's nothing I can do to give you closure." But never once did you hear him say that he wasn't involved, that he didn't do it. He just knows that there's nothing he can say to give them closure. And so it's just it's just so sad. It's so very sad for the family.
Right, and we know that Moore's wife got this same sentence last year. Do you think that played into this because they're getting the same punishment?
No, I think it's appropriate they both get the same punishment. Neither one of them, I guess, on some level, snitched on the other. Neither one of them gave any other information. Neither one of them gave any relief to the family whatsoever, because sometimes in sentencing, especially if you work out a plea of some sort, the consideration can be given for purposes of sentencing because you have helped on some levels with the prosecution's case, and also the idea that you're not putting the family through, all of this kind of torture in addition to what they've already gone through with the loss of their loved one.
All right, Latonia, thank you. Katie, your reaction to the sentencing and to the max?
Well, I mean, I agree with Latonia. Like, there's a sense that it feels somewhat hollow because I think we all know or think or suspect that he was involved in the murder of this woman. But the bottom line is he was convicted of kidnapping. He got the max for kidnapping, and that's all we possibly can squeeze out of this scenario. So it has to be good enough.
Right. All right. Thank you both. We're going to take a break right now on Law and Crime. When we come back, plenty more after this.